because we're all going through very similar struggles in our own unique ways.
Sure.
Right. And so to understand, like, this is my pain to purpose story. Who are the people that really resonate with that? Getting clear about what that is, who they are, where they exist, all of that is how we can actually find and meet them and ultimately create the bridge to share our work, our art, the things we create, our offerings to the people that we choose to serve.
Welcome to the Alive and Aligned podcast, a show dedicated to helping you live a life of truth and share your fullest gifts with the world. I'm your host, Pete Byrne, and I'm here to open your mind to new perspectives, to introduce you to some epic humans who are already out there living their deepest truth. So now just grounding in, taking a breath, letting go of anything you're still holding onto from today, and just opening up to receiving this episode now. Let's dive on in. Everett Satoru is a filmmaker, producer, creative director, facilitator, and branding specialist who helps people find and express their true selves and artistry to the world. After attending film school in LA and leading big projects for major production companies in Hollywood, a series of health issues led him to a burnout, retreating into the mountains and going inward with meditation. From this place of renewed self, he leaned into the pull of his intuition and stepped fully into becoming an artist, a collaborator, a creative and thought leader in the film and creative space. He became renowned for his artistic vision and is now sought out for his talent instead of simply chasing down the next paycheck. Everett's embodiment of the artist archetype and fully giving of his gifts to the world has led to him traveling extensively with his creativity, working with multiple high-profile clients and founding his company Dharma Branding, with which he uses powerful frameworks and facilitation to help others find and express their true voice and their gifts with the world. In this podcast, we explore how Everett leading on film sets has translated into working as a facilitator in the personal development space. The importance of getting to know yourself deeply before trying to go and help others. The dance between doing creative work to make money versus as an authentic expression of your unique artistry, and why our passion projects tend to get shelved or fall by the wayside. How do you know if you have a life purpose, and what does that feel like? And then once you find your purpose, what do you do with it, aka the second mountain? And finally, how looking at our life as a movie can empower us on a very deep level. This episode is filled with fun, jokes, and banter, and there are also some very deep and profound topics and life lessons explored, so I really hope you enjoy it. Let's dive on in. Mr. Satoru, a very warm welcome to the Alive and Aligned podcast. How are you feeling?
Hello, I'm feeling great.
Why?
Feeling great.
Tell me why.
It's exciting
Tell
to be
me
here,
why.
man. It's exciting to be here. You know, I love having the opportunity to actually like drop in and go deep in conversation and unpack certain things and just talk about life, you know, share some codes, share some gems.
Hopefully.
Get real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We just did a little bit of breath there before we started, which was a great suggestion because, you know, here's me, Mr. Breathwork, and I've never actually done like a full practice before dropping in. As a, you know, someone who is a creative and someone who like works on that level with people, like, is that something you do often or like to bring through like that kind of synchronistic practice before?
Absolutely. Especially in places where you don't expect it. You know, anytime you're in some sort of container, it's actually nice to bring in a little breathwork practice to it. And it kind of like glitches people out a little bit, or it catches them a little off what the norm is. And so immediately it's like a little bit of a pattern interrupt with an alignment intention.
Yeah,
so
I just had a vision of you just like, you know, jumping out of dark alleyways on people and go, breathwork, let's go. Didn't expect it.
Totally. Could all use some breathwork.
In like a diaper or something, you know, like like the sensei gone wrong.
That's your comedy coming through, man. That's great.
Classic.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for joining me, man. I'm also very curious and excited as to where we're going to go because there's many avenues we could go down.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's take it there.
For sure.
Let's take it there, Peter.
Peter. Ev has this habit of like calling me Pete. Peter, well, you can do it. You can do the voice.
Peter Baelish.
From Game of Thrones.
Peter Baelish from Game of Thrones.
And we just learned that actually Aidan Gillen, who is Peter Baelish, has the same birthday as me.
It is written.
Yeah, that's
it is
right.
known. This is the way, my friend.
I'm just glad that Game of Thrones isn't the thing anymore.
Yeah.
So we can let that one die slowly.
Yeah, and you can become the new pizza.
Okay.
Pizza Baydish.
I will.
He's like, no.
I will create my own throne.
It's kind of funny though. I love you for leaning into that.
Yeah.
Because when I first brought that up, it was kind of like I don't know, man. But then you just like laughed and smiled through it, and it's just become this funny thing, this funny like connective tissue that we have.
Yeah.
And we can joke.
Yeah, I'm
into.
repressing a lot of pain underneath, but on the surface I'm smiling. So
Yeah. Okay. Good.
better than some of the nicknames I've got.
Oh, yeah.
Peter File.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that one was
running away from that one.
That was the short-lived one. Yeah, Shadow. No, there's been some great ones actually. I actually was called, I was called Horse for like 8 years. Like people didn't know my actual name; they called me Horse. It was one of those ones that, like, again, so in Ireland there's this like mosquito flying around. Hang on, he's coming for you now. Hang on. We need your sensei skills.
Get it?
No, I didn't. Yeah, so in Ireland there's this like thing in the countryside with like a big stocky guy. A nickname would be Horse. How are you, Horse? How are you going, Horse? Just be like, how are you, mate, or how are you, lad, kind of thing. And so I used to say that when I was in Greece, and have all these Australians, and I'd just be like, kind of taking the piss, how are you, Horse? Because I'm not from the country, but like, kind of like putting on an accent and doing it, And then one day everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why call me Horse? I'm like, then I'd explain it. And then one day I came into work and then everyone's like, Horse. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, Horse. I'm like, no, that's not how you do it. Yeah, it's not how you use it. And they're like, okay, Horse. And it was just like, fuck. Okay.
Like, oh man.
Yeah, what have I done? And then it was like, as soon as I tried to introduce myself to anyone new, they'd be like, oh, this is Horse. I'm like, no, it's Pete. And like, Horse, I like that. I can remember that. So, yeah, it kind of just stuck. And then I was just like, all right, roll with it. So my old Instagram was Horse's Big Adventure.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you really took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
That's great.
No horse pun intended, but I did run with it, yes.
You galloped with it, bro.
Galloped with it. So all about the wacky, wonderful nicknames. And I feel like if there's like a very, personal one, like you doing a weird English accent, and whenever you see me, it's like, sure, it's endearing,
Yeah. And there's a lot of power in that, a lot of power to be able to take these things and just really run with them and make them your own.
And laugh at ourselves.
And laugh at ourselves, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And that's something you're absolutely great at.
Totally. We'll get to that. So for the folks back home, give us a little, like the 3 to 4 minute, like, elevator summary of, like, your journey from, like, the back in the day, who, like, growing up, or like who you were, to like where you are right now. Like, I know there's a lot that you could pack in there, but like just the bullet points.
Yeah. The bullet points. Okay. Well, born and raised in Los Angeles, multi-ethnic. So I'm Japanese, Chinese, Native American, 5th generation kind of Asian American in Southern California growing up, which was very different than most of the other kids that I grew around. So,
how so?
I grew up in a predominantly Asian Hispanic community where most of the other families there were maybe first, second generation. So kind of new to being in America, right? And I was 5th generation, so multiple generations in. I was more the Americanized kid. Yeah. That kind of looked a little different, but kind of didn't. And so growing up, I always kind of felt like a black sheep. Sure. Wherever I was.
Because I'm sure if you're hanging out with the white kids as well, it's also a bit like...
Yeah. And so from a very young age, I always kind of felt a little disconnected, but also connected in a lot of ways. And that for me created this way of socializing that was kind of jumping into a bunch of worlds, which was my initiation to learning how to be a bridge and an ambassador to all worlds, which is kind of a beautiful thing. Yes. So as a child, I was deep into sports, deep in basketball. That was like my warrior training. Yeah. Right? Very much in the discipline, very much in the masculine. And then I go to college and I fall in love with filmmaking. I go to college, I fall in love with filmmaking. I unlock this creative side. And I study all sorts of filmmaking, film, television production, theater, screenwriting, all the things that I absolutely like fall in love with it. Yeah. And it's a beautiful time. And I'm great at it. I find that I'm absolutely great at it. It kind of works with all of the skills that just make me true to me, which I love working with people. I love being creative. I love multiple arts. I love storytelling. All of these aspects just get to play in together. And I leave college and immediately I'm working all the time. I live in LA, so I'm in Hollywood. I get to be a part of this production company.
So you're doing filmmaking.
Yeah. So I'm like making like commercials and webisodes, web series back in the day when web series were a thing. And I get to be put in a high position of power very young. And I'm in this production company that's owned by this NFL football player. And so I'm also in LA going to all of these like A-list parties. I'm like, 23, living the dream, right? And and I'm just kind of rising. I'm rising, and I have this like chip on my shoulder of like, ooh, I'm like this young, hot director, creative guy, and I was just working all the time. I was working all the time, and I ended up leaving that company, going to another one, and became an owner of a boutique creative agency. And I was doing branding and creative development and commercials and some feature films. And I got to this point to where I hit this extreme burnout. It was a beautiful time because I was, working with a team. I had interns. I had people that were learning from me. It was beautiful on that aspect. I was doing a diverse amount of projects, and that was all beautiful. And I didn't know who I was, actually. I really didn't know who I was. I was lost in the sauce of being rich and famous and successful.
Bought into the dream.
And all of that, right? All of that. And I actually hit this point in my life where my body was shutting down. I like lost all of my hair in like the span of, 3-4 months. It was scary. It was scary to be like in my mid-20s. And I'm like, where the heck is my hair going? Yeah. And so I had this entire identity shift where I shaved my head. And which was like a huge, like my hair was like, I was all about my hair growing up. And so I end up, having all of these, just physical issues coming up. My hair falls out. And I'm like, and I have this shift in my life where I'm like, who am I? Why am I doing all of this? I had no idea outside of what I thought I should be doing. Meanwhile, subconsciously, I'm just gaining all of these incredible skills.
Sure.
Right? Which is kind of the beautiful part of it. But I didn't know who I was. And so my girlfriend at the time, who was a singer-songwriter, she was also in Hollywood doing a job that really wasn't the thing. And as we were kind of falling in love, that's when all of these beautiful just cosmic synchronicities started showing up. That's when her and I first started seeing like the angel numbers. That's when 1111 came into my world, right? Where there were just these kind of, seemingly random, but also very serendipitous moments where spirit was kind of nudging us in a certain way to kind of be together. And in that process, she was like, I need to get out of the city. I need to be in nature. I need to get out of this place. And so she ends up getting a place in the mountains, and she's like, Everett, you should come with me. Let's live together in the mountains and like get out of here. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this, right? Like my whole world is here. My whole business is here. And so I had to make a huge decision to exit all of that and leave it behind to really kind of take a step backwards to find myself, or step away to find myself. And so I ended up doing that, and that was one of the best decisions of my life. Going up to the mountains, being completely in nature, and that's when I started meditating. That's when I started to really slow my mind down. That's when I started to just get out of the soup that is LA, or the rat race that is LA, to just be in nature, to find myself, and to, really look within.
How far away from like LA or central LA was this mountain?
It was actually an hour and a half away.
Yeah, right.
Which was a beautiful find.
Yeah.
So it was far enough to where energetically I'm completely out of the grid. but it was also close enough to where it was like, okay, if I'm gonna do a shoot, I want to
Dip in.
I can dip in.
Yeah.
But that was all by choice. Before
Yes.
I was just in it.
Yeah.
And it was like all over me, and I just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I go up into the mountains, have a really incredible, powerful spiritual awakening, which was all actually through nature. It was all through nature, because where I lived, my entire backyard was this beautiful forest. And so every day I would just go out on really long walks and and just sit out and meditate. And the beautiful thing is I had zero training, had no idea how to meditate. So how I started was sitting down and just being like, okay, think of nothing.
Nothing.
Stare until something happens, right? It was that primitive.
Yeah.
That process. And eventually I really learned how to quiet my mind, how to really breathe, how to synchronize with breath and really be in nature. And that took me a couple of years of just being in that. But after that point, I was meditating all the time, and I loved it. And in the process of me actually leaving, that's when I established myself as an artist, as a creator, establishing an aesthetic for myself. Because before I was just creating for everybody. I was just this chameleon of a creater. Oh, what do you want to create? Oh, I can make that happen for you.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful skill.
Sure. The chameleon.
Yeah. And, I didn't know who I was. And so just by going through that process, established an aesthetic and a brand for myself. And I started to get heavily into music videos and working with artists. Yeah. And because my partner at the time, she was also a musician, like that whole world was just all around me, just musicians and artists. And, in kind of this pagan spirituality kind of a world, right? Which is really fun. And then that chapter kind of ended when I was like, okay, I feel this kind of spirituality, but like, where's the community? Where's the people? And so I end up connecting with a podcaster who had this podcast that I was listening to all the time. It was called Positive Head, and it was basically like a daily dose of high vibe conscious content, right? To just kind of keep you in that frequency.
Sure.
And him and I became really close friends, and I got this like download of like, oh wow, I'm supposed to make a documentary or supposed to bring some sort of visual aspect to his show. And we end up connecting, trying to make this documentary, and it ends up turning into a variety consciousness talk show in LA and Venice, where we have this huge house called the Mystic Manor. And in the Mystic Manor, we host retreats, we shoot this show at the end of the week, and it became this like centralized conscious hub in Venice. And my intention was, I was like, well, where's my community? Where's my people? If I can just share and give my gift of creation and storytelling, then perhaps I can just be rubbing shoulders with people in the conscious community, people that I want to learn from and be around. And so that happened, and I was just catapulted to like the center of this community, which was beautiful. Which was so beautiful, and that was a life in itself, and I really got to experience space holding for the first time, and facilitating for the first time, which, as I looked at it, it was a really easy integration for me because of my understanding of leadership on set, on film sets, right? Because in film sets, they're all these completely new ecosystems with all these different personalities, and we are essentially a mini tribe that is sharing a purpose, a creative purpose, right, to film this thing.
And that needs to assemble in a certain way.
That needs to assemble in a certain way, exactly. And so having gone through years of that, plus with college, right, like college training plus years of just training and the personalities you get in Hollywood are like all over the place.
Sure, yeah.
Right, and so really my role as a director or a leader in those containers was to really hold the vision and to keep the frequency of it true to what the heart of what our goal was. And so all of those skills applied then into the community aspect, the facilitating aspect, and it was exactly the same flex, just for a different purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One is creatively, let's shoot this thing, create this video. The other one, when it came down to the community aspect, facilitating aspect, is let's get to the truth of your power.
Yeah.
Right. It was kind of the same thing but different. And so really learning, like applying my skills of just creating harmony within tribe and shared vision and cohesion within tribe was just applied there. And that was a beautiful experience for me. And so since then, COVID happened, right? COVID happened, and that whole portal, which was completely, generated by people coming in face to face interactions, right? Just completely shut down. Yeah, I know. And I was like, okay, Spirit, like, where do you want me to go? And so I was called to then just travel all over the place. And so I got into this chapter of what I call portal hopping, where I was like, ooh, like I feel called to go to Sedona, be in Sedona for a couple of months. I feel called to be in Tulum. I lived in Tulum for several months, and Kauai, and was just kind of bouncing all over the place, and recognizing that there are so many incredible groups of people or tribes of people all around the world that kind of have the same shared vision, and there's these similar archetypes that kind of cluster around each other to create a certain vision. And so I was just doing that, and again, just like sharing my gift in all of that, and getting to know people, and fulfilling my probably one of my ultimate dharmas, which is to be a bridge and be an ambassador, right? From my kind of pain point as a child of being the black sheep, not fitting in, right?
Yeah.
Having to learn how to be a bridge. That was then just that then continued to apply.
Yeah.
throughout
A
the rest
deeper
of my
level
life,
of that.
on a deeper level. Yeah. And so from that point was traveling, and I ended up here in Bali, and decided to stay. And now what's really beautiful is I have kind of a back and forth relationship between here and Bali, and
Well, here in Bali.
and the States, where now I get to work with conscious creators or brands that I really love, where the people who are behind them are also deeply soul-aligned friends and allies, that then I get to just kind of work on these higher impact, higher purpose type projects. And I'm also here very much involved with Royal Codes, the Goddess brands, creative directing for them, building out a really beautiful platform that really is just supporting the feminine rise.
Yeah.
And
While looking good.
all of our sisters. Well, yeah, exactly. While looking good and while looking beautiful. And and I'm also, developing several really powerful coaching and consulting programs for finding your Dharma and aligning that with branding. And so kind of what's been present for me, I would say in the past year, is really bringing together all of the parts that are myself into one kind of cohesive
Supernova, as you call it.
supernova of expression. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm here.
Here we are.
And here we are.
It's fucking epic. That was a really quick 4 minutes. That was beautiful. Love it. And do you know what's funny? We've actually never dropped in on like your story in that way. Like I've never heard like really those stepping stones to like, hey, and I just like you just appeared and I was like, oh, fucking Eb, he's killing it,
Thanks.
And seeing obviously the quality and level of your work and how you show up as a person and what you're stoked about, and just it's really interesting to get that. Yeah, the bullet points.
Yeah,
or
there you go.
the kind of the backstory,
There
the
you
hero's
go.
journey, as it will be.
Yeah, just for you.
So many threads that could be pulled. What I'm feeling is juicy is this exploration of, what you spoke to, which was like being in LA and doing all these jobs for all these different people and becoming this chameleon and being able to try on many hats and do many genres.
Chameleon.
Depends which country you're from.
Comedian.
Chameleon.
Chameleon.
Yeah.
Chameleon.
Chameleon, yeah.
Chameleon, yeah, that's what.
Yeah, okay, cool. You could be
I
comedian
heard
too,
comedian. I was like, is it comedian or chameleon?
though.
Shapeshifter.
Yes. All of the above.
All of the above.
So like being able to drop in with these different like genres and different types of people and brands and kind of create what's needed really. I know from my experience of music, I've been able to do that in many environments, many styles of music, kind of like the portable Spotify, if you like. How that is really good way to create a very diverse craft, to get really good at lots of different shit and be able to draw from many places of experience. But I also know, and my hypothesis may be the same with you, is that at a certain point it becomes, unfulfilling. So what's been your dance between, pursuing like your creative expression and artistry for the cash and for the financial, like, what that allows you to do, the freedom and like what you get to do as a result of using your gifts to make an income, versus doing it because like, this is what I really fucking want to do. And this is my bigger vision and mission. Like, and just like my pure creation as an artist.
That's been one of my greatest challenges.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, that's been one of my greatest challenges. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because there is the ultimate skill of being a shapeshifter and being able to meet people where they're at, which is a beautiful way to co-create with anybody, right? Is to have that ability, that versatility to drop into wherever your collaborator is at. Which is a skill that I love. And I think that's really valuable. I mean, if you're working with anybody, you really want to be met where they're at. And I think there's something powerful about that. And the debilitating thing to me, and my personal thing is because I was in such high demand for others, and because it actually fulfilled me to serve others.
Sure.
That's where I would lean.
Yeah.
And any passion project that I had was just an idea that I would shelf,
Yeah.
And so a big challenge that I was in was feeling the need and purpose through others and my ability to serve others and allowing that to take precedent over anything that I wanted.
Yeah.
And then any time that I did have for myself, I would be by myself and be like, oh, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
I would just be paralyzed by choice.
Yeah. I'm probably creatively a little bit drained as well because you've been output so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Creatively drained and then just paralyzed by choice, because I can do all sorts of things and also had so many desires.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start. Ooh, someone needs me over there. I'm gonna just do that.
Shiny object.
Right? Shiny object. Oh, right. Which would then take precedent.
So in terms of like the creation you were doing for clients, let's say 100% is like you producing your like utmost like magnus opus, like the thing you really want to make for the world, over here on the left-hand side. And that's like 100% fulfillment in terms of your creative artist expression. What percentage was these other projects? How, like in terms of the actual artistic expression piece, how much were they being fulfilled? Would it be like, 20, 60, 80%?
In the beginning, when I was in Hollywood, maybe 20%.
20.
Maybe. If that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was working with brands that were so not aligned with me.
Sure.
It was all about the money.
Yeah. But at the time, did it feel like 20%?
Of my expression coming through?
Yeah.
It did, actually. Yeah. It did. Because, I think for me, actually, no matter what I was creating, my heart was always in it. Like, I would just totally pour my entire heart into it and find a deep why it was important. And I think that's how I got so much success really quickly, is because I was so authentically in with both feet, which was a beautiful thing for the end product, but it was also really draining on my heart.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And especially as a young artist or a young creator, every project is so important. It's the most important thing, right? Because the amount of projects that you have created, it's just a lot smaller. So like, oh, this is my one big music video or my one big commercial. So my heart would be in it. And so I was just like an emotional wreck.
It's like a polyamorous producer.
Yeah, pretty much. And so that's kind of how it was in the beginning. And then as I established myself as an artist and my brand, people started to approach me for what I could do, right? It wasn't like, hey, Everett, can you create for my brand that's completely off, right?
Yeah.
It was Everett, I love what you do. Can you do something like that?
Yeah.
And so I started being approached for me as an artist, and that was a beautiful shift.
Yeah. What was that fulfilling on the percentage scale?
And then, so then that bumped it up 60, 70%, all the way up to like the high 90s at a certain point, to where it became less of how can I fulfill your vision and how can we now just collaborate together. Yeah. And so it even got to a certain point where I stopped calling my clients. I started calling them collaborators. Even in my mind, I just started to shift that paradigm of I work for you to I work with you. And now we're collaborators in this project. And so what that also did was that created this new relationship of reciprocity,
Different energetic.
of how we're meeting each other, and how I was also holding boundaries for myself. You know,
because you're not a client.
Yeah, exactly. Versus just being a yes man.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I was, especially in Hollywood. I was just kind of a yes man because, hey, big client, big name, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know, to then being an artist that was kind of unfuckable.
Yeah. Because you're in demand.
Because I'm in demand.
Yeah.
And I know who I am and what my art is all about. And so people then, that created so much more respect.
Yeah.
Right? That created so much more respect across the board. And then people were just asking me, "Oh, Everett, what would you do?" Right? What would you do? What do you think is best? And then I could just authentically meet them in my ability to listen
Instead of trying to please
to please. Yeah. So it's the same skill, but just a little bit different.
A little bit more self-worth.
Yeah, a lot of bit more self-worth.
Yeah.
A lot of bit more self-worth.
Yeah, a lot of it more. I like that. And you know, it's been interesting, like recently we've been having some good drop-ins around this idea of like an artist, or what you would call a thought leader. And it sounds like that's kind of like what you're stepping into more at that time, like someone who actually people listen to their ideas, you know, instead of like, hey, you do this thing that I'm thinking about. Like, what do you think? I want to know what you think. And I'm going to be like influenced or inspired by what you think or say, which is super epic. And as you said, that then commands a level of like beyond getting paid more, you know, for your time, which is always nice, but like being able to just like, sometimes I feel like I'll create something, or more in the past, like where I would create something, I'm like, this is epic, I love this. And people are kind of like, meh, you know, but it was the wrong audience, you know? So it's getting to a place within myself and also with people recognizing that like thought leader concept or artist concept where they're willing to shut the fuck up and listen for a moment. You know what I mean? Like my experience with like, here's a song I wrote, but actually I'm playing to like 10 drunk people in a bar in Denmark somewhere. They don't care, you know? It's the wrong audience, you know? But then if I took that as my own reflection of my own self-worth, oh, well, that must be terrible. That's why I'm here, downward spiral. Instead of like actually, as you said, cultivating that inner sense of self and like artistry and being like, no, like what I'm doing is important, you know, and it has value. And then that emanating out to the point where people are knocking on your door saying, give us your best.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much power in the clarity of understanding yourself. And that's kind of, that journey has been what I've been fascinated about in this offering, in this consulting offering.
Yes.
So kind of what you're saying is when you're doing it for people that aren't even aligned for it, it's just not a match. And so how can you even know who your people are until you know yourself? Yeah. And that's kind of the journey, right? That's the journey that you and I have been going on, is really going deep into ourselves and our story and our personal journey, identifying certain pain points and things that really forged us in our hero's journey, to then recognize like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is like what I really resonate from a pain to purpose standpoint. And then identifying the people or the avatars, right, that can relate to that, because we're all going through very similar struggles in our own unique ways. Sure. Right. And so to understand like, this is my pain to purpose story. Who are the people that really resonate with that? Getting clear about what that is, who they are, where they exist, all of that is how we can actually find and meet them and ultimately create the bridge to share our work, our art, the things we create, our offerings to the people that we choose to serve. And therein lies that beautiful resonance, which then you get the beautiful reciprocity of collaborators. Yes.
And like segueing nicely into that, like why should someone follow their purpose? What's the point?
Why should someone follow their purpose? What is the point?
Well, first of all, the prerequisite for that. The prerequisite for that is like, how does someone even know if they have a purpose?
I believe everybody has a purpose.
How do they know?
That's why we're here.
How do they know?
Because I think we know when we are waking up every day feeling like there's something that we get to do, get to fulfill, and we're going to sleep feeling fulfilled. Yes. Having pursued that. Yeah. Right? Like not necessarily even having accomplished it, but because we're walking a path that is aligned with us really sharing and giving our gifts at our highest point of expression, and it actually landing and being received is really how we're aligned in our purpose and our dharma. You know, Tony Robbins says the secret to living is giving, right? And like, you know, back in my mountain meditating days, Tony Robbins was a great resource.
Totally.
I was just listening to him all day.
Yeah.
You know, such a motivational guy. But
Totally.
one of his big things was, you know, the secret to living is giving. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Because we're outside of ourselves. And we can't get to the place of giving until we can actually authentically give from that place.
A full
of
cup,
overflow.
yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so first it's like realizing, okay, to give is really the secret, but wait a minute, my whole life I've just been overgiving. And
Self-sacrificing.
Right.
Yeah.
So there needs to be something different about that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, actually I need to give to myself first to then give from the overflow.
Yes.
And so that's really, you know, training and attuning ourselves and creating a lifestyle where we are actually becoming fit to serve first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then from that place, all right, now I'm generating an abundance of myself
Yes.
and my gifts and my power to then be able to serve other people.
Yes.
And I believe that that's our own unique hero's journey, our own unique soul's journey on this planet for ourselves to get to that place to then to go through the hero's journey, through the trials and tribulations, to get to that place of abundance, to then bring the bounty back to our people, right? To our so-called kingdom. And we all have our own unique kingdoms, our own unique worlds that we serve that is all about our North Star, our ultimate why. And so to get to that place, I think is purpose fulfilled. Yeah. Because we have value, we're serving, we feel we're in our power, we're doing the thing we're most passionate about and we love, and that's actually generating value, and we're able to share and give that value to other people. Yeah. And then they get benefited from it, and most likely because they're benefiting is there's some sort of mirror to you know, the reason why we do it, and it just becomes this beautiful alignment of everything I do matters. Yeah. And that's a beautiful feeling.
We had this analogy in one of our drop-ins, I think a few weeks ago, about the 3 stages. Like the first stage is like driving in the car, running from the tigers, you know, or it could be like trying to climb a mountain that's not really your mountain, you know, and like putting a lot of effort into that, getting to the top and realizing it's fucking horseshit, or realizing that, there's all these tigers chasing and that, like, you know, I've been running away from these fears, like the fear of not being worthy, the fear of, you know, these deeper emotions that I've been avoiding. And then the second thing is like being able to stop the car and just chill. There's no tigers, you know? Or, you know, the second mountain could be, you know, personal and like just connection to self, finding who am I, you know? And finding like what do I need? Like, you know, how do I give to myself? As you said, the secret of living is giving, but like, giving to self is like, it's such a reframe of like, we usually think of giving as an outward, you know, it's fucking Christmas, you know, here we go. But it's actually, giving to yourself. And then the third thing is like, all right, where do I want to go now? Now that I'm full, where do I want to give to? Where do I want to go in life? And that's usually then the point of like transcending into that greater service and creating something bigger, which comes with, you know, its own set of challenges of like, okay, well, I've got this message, but it's me in my hut. So how do I transmit that to the world? What skills do I now have to acquire? Who do I need to bring in to bring that to the next level? So I can be of service. Super interesting.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful place to be. You know, when you're at that place. And I find that I've also, it almost feels like a kiss of death in a way, where you're at this place where you're like, I have so much I want to give and share to the world, but I don't know how. And you're
just grabbing people.
And you're in this like limbo, right? You're kind of in this limbo of like, I have so much energy and excitement and desire to give and change the world, but then you're blocked by either what you don't know or skills,
lack of communication skills, lack of audience,
whatever that may be. And that's a whole other journey. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I find that there are so many people who have now gone through that first mountain of understanding themselves and getting aligned with purpose. But then there's another pain point where you're like, I'm so aligned with purpose, but I don't know what to do with it. Yeah. Or nobody's receiving it. Yeah. You know? And then so there's like, a whole other way of finding clarity and finding yourself within that to then be able to actually express your gift. Yeah.
That's that point where you're like grabbing people in dark alleys saying, do some breath work.
Exactly.
It's like, this is the only way I know. This is marketing. So it's about then, like, you know, I think some people like learn a lot of, let's say, business skills on the first first mountain, which is like, I'm going to prove myself, make all the money, and then I'll be enough, you know? And then it's actually, some of those skills can transfer, but for other people, like, I know for me, I kind of never really went down the corporate route or anything. Like I went straight into music and artistry, whatever, traveling. And then for me now, it's been more of a journey the last years of like, oh, I've got all these things, but how do I amplify that? How do I bring that to the world? And that's something that, you know, we've been dropping in on. It's been fucking epic, you know what I mean? So tell us a bit more about Dharma Branding, which is your new exploration.
Yeah.
The Magnus Opus.
It's beautiful. It's so specifically Dharma Branding is for high impact creators or people who are creating something and want to actually make a high impact in the world. And so it is actually meant to align with people that are dealing with what I just spoke about. Is I am in my purpose, or I found my purpose, or I think I found my purpose, and I'm ready to give more of it, but I just don't know how.
Yeah.
I'm either paralyzed by choice or I feel I don't have clarity on exactly what I'm going to do, or I have a million things that I really want to do, but I don't know which one to start with.
Yeah.
Or I'm really excited to do this, but I've never done it before. I'm a little bit scared to vulnerably be put in front of the spotlight. And these are all things I've done.
How do I make money with it?
Or how do I make money doing this thing, right?
Can I even charge for this?
Yeah, exactly. Am I even worthy to be doing this? Who am I to be speaking about this? And so there are so many things, and I've you know, again, like just being a shapeshifter chameleon, I feel like I felt all of these things in my experience to actually feel unfulfilled, even though I've found the thing.
Yeah.
Even though I have all of the skills to do it, like I kind of got into this place to where I'm like, I feel like I'm wasting my time, or I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my world by not doing this. And so there was like this huge drive to do all of these things, but like just the lack of clarity or a roadmap or direction as to how to do it, which then put me in this place of like, I don't know, right? Like just exhaustion and burnout and all of that, all of those kinds of feelings. And so in my journey to figure that out, emerged Dharma Branding. And I really did not even consider me going down the coaching consulting route until I was doing it for myself. And creating all of these frameworks and questionnaires and processes and ways to look at my entire life story to then create value out of it and to turn that value into specific channels of expression that created so much clarity with myself. And when I started getting clarity with myself, those eureka moments were like, oh, I know what I have to do. Versus I have all of this energy, I don't know what to do with it, turned into I know what I have to do. And that I know what I had to do created like all my energy just went into singular channels and that felt good. And then I started creating momentum for myself. And I was like, wow, okay. And then that just started generating excitement. Right? Instead of burnout, instead of like I'm going nowhere fast kind of an energy, it was I know exactly where I'm going. Boom, boom, boom. And as I was feeling all of this, I was also just thinking about everybody in my world. All of my friends, my peers, my colleagues, people that are also in a similar place who are really wanting to make impact, but have these obstacles. And I was like, wow, like I really want to share this with all of my friends, with all of my people. And then I was like, bing. Actually, this is a way that I can collaborate with people that I love in purpose, where it creates a beautiful reciprocity. Right? Where this becomes something that I can actually turn into a business, right? And charge money for, as opposed to this thing that I would just be doing anyways all the time, right? That would kind of be undervalued because it wasn't identified, right? Like, and this is a skill that I just love doing. Like whenever I talk or hang out with anybody, like usually I'm like, what are you most excited about creating right now? You know, what support do you need? It's like, you're being too deep right now. Like, no, well, let's, it's because that's what I genuinely, authentically love. And so I'm actually pairing what I love to do with what I'm passionate about, which with something that solved a lot of problems for me.
Full power ikigai.
Exactly.
And your mess becomes your message, becomes your mission.
Your mess becomes your message. the moral of your story becomes your mission, and the miracle you find is in the mirror. Yeah. That was like a new drop in. I was like, your message for sure, right? When you look at your entire life story, your hero's journey up until this point, the moral of that becomes the mission. And by moral to mission, I mean like, what is the moral of the story here? And what's beautiful, again, is like me tapping into my storytelling, filmmaking expertise, right? Just in screenwriting, it's all about the hero's journey arc, which as we look into the hero's journey arc, that is such a divinely orchestrated arc of a soul growth.
Yeah.
Which is why it rings so true when we watch movies that are so aligned with the hero's journey. It's like, wow, I can see myself and feel myself in that. And in life, I believe we all go through these hero's journeys again and again and again. Anytime we're like, I really want this but can't have it. The universe is like, all right, we're going to put you in this new movie, in this new episode.
Yeah.
Right? And you go around. But yeah, to my point of hero's journey is, if we look at our lives like a movie and we extrapolate what's the moral of that story, the moral of that story is where we can derive our ultimate mission from, right? And our mission is the thing that we want to see happen in the world. This is the impact we want to make in our world, right? And so coming from moral, right? So coming from and just looking at like origin stories of like superheroes, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like the thing that forged them is the thing that they vow to protect.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like that's where our mission gets formed. And so the miracle in the mirror is, I think, the realization that it was always there and it's always been you. And the miracle and the gift that you provide and give to the world isn't actually outside. It's right here.
Yeah.
And it's been here the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was written.
Yes.
You know, and that's
Yes.
and that's really leaning into the divinity of your life.
Yeah.
Which I think is a beautiful path to take.
Yeah.
And that's how it connects to the authentic truth of you.
Yeah. It's almost like this unfolding or peeling back the layers of like, because it's almost like in search for purpose, like we mentioned, like why would someone try to find their purpose or follow their purpose? Like it was a bit of a trick question, obviously, but you know, it was like the dude's name is his company's called Dharma Branding. Like, you know, he might have one or two things to say about purpose. I believe that a lot of people believe like in that early stages or even maybe latter stages of like trying to find fulfillment, happiness, joy, and ultimately purpose in life, it's this thing of finding your purpose and it's outside of you. And it's like this thing on the top of the mountain. Then as soon as you get up to the top, then you'll find your purpose and then everything will be great, you know? And actually, I believe it's more of like a series of concentric circles that are layered around like our deepest core and that we get to like strip off. And that could be trauma, it could be limiting beliefs, it could be conditioning from our environment or parents or society to tell us you can't do that, it's not good enough, or you're not ready, or you need more training, or all these things that we are holding on to, or the fear of being unworthy, you know, that's encasing that true purpose and surrounding it, not letting us actually access it. Maybe parts of it kind of slip out, or this analogy I use of like the garden where we've got our plot of land in front of us and we're pouring like Miracle Grow and also like poison on it at the same time. But the flowers are popping up in all the gardens all around, so we're supporting all the gardens around and all the flowers are getting spreaded around the outside, you know, and all the people around us are getting uplifted and supported by our gifts, but our own garden isn't growing for some reason. We're like, why? And it's actually less about putting on more Miracle Grow and finding the secret thing, and actually about taking away the poison that we've been pouring on it and just allowing what is to flower and to flourish.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Interesting exploration I have for you, okay?
Yeah.
Because we talk about this concept of the hero's journey and the story format, and it makes a lot of sense as a lens when we look at life through this concept of the hero's journey, because we can find the frameworks and we can say, oh, there's the wall, there's the challenge, there's the pain, there's the guide, there's the outcome, there's the lesson. You know, it's very easy to find them. We could apply that to many of our lives, of anyone's life, really. We could fit into that framework, okay? But given the fact that we are, you know, humans by nature, okay, and we make meaning through story to some degree, we create stories all the time. You know what I mean? Like, well, you know, why why did that person say that thing to me? Oh, is it because this? Maybe they have that. Maybe that. And my mind is consistently trying to find a story that allows my experience and my environment to make sense, so we can feel safe, So how much do you think of our life experience and these challenges or supposed challenges and trials to triumphs are because of our inherent need to create story out of everything?
I think 100% is our need to create story. Yeah. I definitely live by the belief, whether it is or it isn't, you're right. And so that gives us so much power as the creators and writers of our story. And it's one of those things where it's like, you can choose to see it this way or that way. Yeah. Whatever you actually firmly believe will be so, based off of your perception of how you're receiving the story. Yeah. And so when we're not aware of that, it could be this really chaotic, our lives could be perceived as horror stories.
Totally.
Or they could be perceived as comedies. Yeah. Or a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Right? You pick your story, whatever you want to play. And so I ultimately believe that, however we choose to perceive life is going to be how we perceive life.
It's epic.
Yeah. And so, 100%, the stories that we tell ourselves about our story is going to be the thing that is the story.
Yes.
And so really, when it comes to bringing your power back to yourself, it's actually recognizing that you do have the choice. You do have the power to choose how you perceive that story. And when you choose to look at it from a point of a hero's journey, where, there were all of these horrible, atrocious things that may have happened to me in the past. Am I going to be a victim to that, or am I going to rise and be a hero from that?
Yeah.
And, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to complain about it for the rest of my life? Just, oh, poor me?
Yeah.
Or am I going to actually look at that, accept that it happened, and then look at it from a different vantage point to be like, okay, well, where are the gifts here? Where are the gems? Where are the lessons? I'm still alive. Yeah. I made it through. Yeah. Right.
I'm only at stage 3 of 8.
Yeah. And what have I learned? Yeah. Right. And then that kind of creates this pattern of really being able to lean into challenges and obstacles and pain points to be like, okay, here we go. I'm in another episode. Yeah. I'm in the next episode of my journey, and what's going to be the moral of the story, and how is it going to end? Is it going to be a sad ending, a tragic ending, or is it going to be a powerful, empowering one? Yeah.
And it's funny because it's only death that really actually puts that final full stop at the end of the story. And until the fat lady sings, it's game on, What I mean? And it's so interesting, just thinking this concept of the story, because there's we can tell our story externally to the world, our brand story or our hero's journey, but it really does come down to what's the internal story that we actually have. Because we could spin a great yarn outside of us and say oh yeah, I overcame this challenges. Now I'm this 6-figure coach who, whatever it is. But actually, what is the story you have inside? And what actually is, and it's kind of it's touching off law of attraction vibes as well. It's what you choose to put your attention on is what you're going to manifest or whatever. Absolutely. But it's really interesting that landed in a different way, that the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves and our lives is going to impact how we view the stimulus, the information that's coming in. Oh, this person said that to me because, yes, I am a piece of shit. And, that now it's confirmed once again, and I'm right, and get to continue to wallow in that. And as you said, be the victim and receive, almost energy from other people by being that, and that's maybe how I've learned to meet my needs, or to meet my need of connection, which is the only way I feel comfortable to connect with someone is to come to them and say, oh, I feel really bad about this problem, and then kind of talk, instead of just being able to communicate hey, this is what's up. So really, I love that reframe of just the deeper story, and how that really does change potentially the trajectory, but it has to be an inside job.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the key to true embodiment, because you kind of touched on, externally weaving a story. And I think that, we see a lot of people out there that are presenting themselves as such. But then intuitively, when we perceive what they're doing or the work they're putting, you're just I don't know. I don't know if I fully...
Something's suspicious.
Something's up about that, right? And so I think in our journey to actually authentically be true to this external thing that we're presenting, we want it to be fully aligned. Yeah. And I think that's that warrants the journey within
Yeah.
to be truly embodied. And by truly embodied, it means like, is the story that you're telling yourself within yourself actually what it is that you're expressing outwardly? And to be honest with yourself, right? And look at those parts that are not so easy to look at.
Yeah.
And actually like work on those. And I think that's the deep work.
Yes.
And for me, when you actually feel or meet somebody who's like truly embodied, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I really believe you. And
Yes.
I feel safe.
Yes.
Like my body, my energy feels safe, and I actually trust you, and this feels good.
Yes.
And that's a magnetic energy. That's a truly magnetic energy. And also too, like we are all a work in progress.
Yes.
You know, and so I also forgive those people, you know, or I try not to judge those people that are, you know, doing their best, putting their best foot forward, and yet there's still something that's not embodied.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a difference there between seeing somebody who's doing that and pointing the finger and be like, you're not embodied. You're, get out of here. Right. Which that's not the energy either.
Yeah.
But rather just looking at them and be like, okay, like you're also a human that's growing and learning and figuring it out too.
Compassion.
Yeah. Compassion. So much compassion. Right. And discernment to where it's like, okay, well, I'm actually not gonna
Loving boundaries as well. Yeah.
fully like lean into that,
Sure.
you know, or I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And see it for the beauty of what it is. Which again goes back to the training of what's the story we're telling ourselves about ourselves to others, and what's the story we're telling ourselves about the people that we see and are interacting with, right?
There's this amazing insight that dropped recently, which I think I shared with you, and it ties back into our original piece around the artist, okay? Because what I noticed recently was that for many years, like I was a musician, I'm playing music, and to many people outside, they'd say, you got this amazing life, you know? But there was still parts of me, like I actively was not writing music, you know, or I used to, but I kind of stopped it. And it was almost like, because the story I told about myself was, I don't do that. I'm a traveling entertainer, performer, like a DJ with a guitar, like super cool. It's different. It's not like trying to be Ed Sheeran, but not Ed Sheeran. It's like, you know, so that was the story. So I got really good at that story, you know, and I really embodied that story. But then to play an original song would be like, not me, you know? And it was only after like a couple of weeks ago when I got back from Envision Festival and had this big insight around like, wow, this is like something I really want to and need to do. And then we had to drop in, and it was just this thing of like owning that identity of the artist and changing the story internally of, as you said, the identity, and stepping into that. It was like then when I went to that event at our friend's place I was playing original songs. I'm like, oh, this feels in alignment with me, with the story and the identity that I have of myself. I am an artist, you know? And then actually it feels out of integrity and out of congruence to not play original music and sing and write and produce that music, you know? So it's almost like in choosing that identity and like choosing to believe that for a moment, my behavior started to change. My beliefs about myself started to change, and a new story started to create new stimulus coming in from outside, or I was receiving the stimulus differently. Maybe before I might have played a song and people were like, oh, that's fucking great. And I'd be like, yeah, but like I don't really do that. So, you know, I just it would bounce right off because it didn't align with that identity and story. But in owning that, I was actually then able to receive that and go, yeah, that is good, you know? And like, what else? You know, let's go again. And then I'm like, oh, well, obviously I'm going to just book time in the studio and record these songs now, because that's what an artist would do. So now it's emanating out, and then the actions have been taken almost like naturally. And then it starts to create that new reality.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
So powerful when you actually can authentically claim that for yourself, within yourself, which I think is step one. Claiming.
Or step 25, you know?
Step one of the second mountain.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
No, but yeah, I mean, just claiming that for yourself first and foremost, and then rewriting a story about really who that person is and why, and seeing yourself as that, to then receive from your external world that validation, or that feedback. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. The feedback.
Validation is also good.
Validation. I mean, well, you know, there's a charge with that word sometimes.
Sure, a little top up every, as long as you're not relying on it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
we talked about before about like our, you know, having a car that's powered by diesel, and you're driving around consistently looking for that petrol station to top up, and you're willing, even if the price is high, you got to pay it. I got to sacrifice myself in order to get that validation because I need it to survive,
Right.
versus having that self-powered hybrid battery inside that you're consistently validating yourself. And then if you get a little bit of petrol every now and again, it's nice, but
Right.
you don't need it.
Right.
Yeah. So then it
Right.
gets to be a nice cherry on the cake.
Right. What are you using to fuel your engine?
Yes.
Is it validation, or is it something deeper, more meaningful from within, more sustainable?
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that metaphor. That's a powerful one.
I got a few of them. So, kind of closing us out, if there's the folks back home that really want to change the story they're telling themselves and maybe find a new identity that is more aligned with this purpose of theirs, what would be some steps based on like what you've learned on your journey?
Yeah.
Call me up. Buy my fucking program.
No, yeah, I think I would say that overall it's really looking at your life. It's looking at your life through a different lens. I think kind of what we just said is really getting clear on what it is that lights you up, first and foremost. Is there anything that's present that you feel like you want to be living, an embodiment or an identity that you want to shift into? Mm-hmm. Feel into that, claim it for yourself. And then I think, another step is looking really at your life as if it is a movie, which for me, the reason why I say movie is it kind of helps to take you out of it, right?
Yeah.
It brings you out of the movie.
You're in the CEO, the bird's eye view.
Yeah, and you become the god of your movie, of your world, and you can like look at it from this more objective point of view.
Yeah.
To then like break it down and analyze it and be like, whoa, this trauma or this challenge that I went through really forged these gifts.
Yeah.
And wow, how grateful am I for that?
Yeah.
And actually, these gifts is what is inspiring me to be in this embodiment now. Oh wow, there's connection points here.
Yeah.
Let's look at that even deeper and create and find a deeper why for why I want to do this. Mm-hmm. And for me, one of the most helpful things was when I got really clear on my why, which I talk about this like the primal why, like getting to such a core why, which it becomes a primal why. Then you become unfuckable, right? Then nothing can shake you off of your purpose or the thing that you really want, because it's like, this is why I live and breathe. This is why I'm here. And I know this because I've looked at my life and everything forged me to be in this place, to then do this thing. Yeah. I am clearly meant to do this. It is written. It is written. Yeah. From that perspective. And then that just creates so much power, so much energy, so much motivation. And that feels really good. Yeah. There's a sense of like, things aren't just happening randomly. There is actually a deeper thread that's running through all of it. Mm-hmm. Super powerful. And just to reflect as well, of course, everything's possible, on the solo journey, but I've really personally enjoyed being able to have a reflection from someone who's not in my world and seeing and experiencing life through my eyes, to step back and go oh shit, look at all these pieces that I take for granted, and look at all these moments that have happened that again I've just been oh yeah, and to look at them and go, oh shit, that, and to rewrite the story, from that CEO top down perspective, and with the help of someone who's just not attached to it. They're not bought in on those things, and they also don't have the same holding patterns from all the people around who are maybe keeping us in that. They see us as the daughter or as the coworker or as the the performer, or whatever label that people have put in us, and continue to expect us to show up in. So what we can get out of that enough with someone who's neutral and be oh well, this is what I see. You're clearly a fucking tap dancer, obviously, and you're shit, I always knew it, but it doesn't align with my life. And then the journey just becomes about peeling back those layers so that you can fully become that. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, is really being open to feedback and also discerning of feedback. It's kind of a little bit of both. Yeah. Because something that's really stunted my growth is me being I need to do this by myself. Yeah. I'm a manifesting generator, so I do like to do everything on my own. Yes. It feels really good, but I've also stunted my growth by not accepting or receiving feedback or reflections from others. Yeah. And just being no, I got this, So now, after having gone through it a couple times, I'm like, yeah, actually, it's really powerful to get a reflection from someone else that I trust and love.
Yeah.
You know, to call up my blind spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's epic. I've been experimenting recently with like having this thing of like a closing question where there's a question for the audience that they can go and sit and ruminate and maybe journal on for like 5 minutes after the episode. So what would be one question you'd like to throw on out there for people to just allow them to really get to know themselves a bit better based on what we've talked about today?
Yeah. I think the question would be, what does... Yeah, okay, yeah. The thing that's coming through right now is what does success look like to you? What does success look like and feel like to you? And really, I think imagining with no bounds from a dream space, from a perspective of being the writer, director, and star of your own movie, what does that look like and feel like? And are you living that life? Can you live that life? Can you allow yourself to live that life? And just feel into that space. Let that seed, just be planted.
Yeah.
And see where that takes you.
Yeah. I love that, man. Can I go have a little think about that myself as well?
Yeah, good.
Although we're on the path.
Good. Yeah. I think it's so powerful to allow ourselves to be in the dream space. To not stay in the dream space, but to live in the dream space, because that's where the inner child comes out. That's where the truth comes out. That's where no bounds, infinite creation and possibility happens. And so to be there and allow ourselves to really just feel that for ourselves, and get out of the practical hows and, you know, all of that, but just really feel it, that becomes a frequency that leads us to the actual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or reminds us of what was always there all along.
Exactly. The miracle is in the mirror.
Love that. Mr. Ev, the creator, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome so
Fucking
much,
legend.
man.